everyone, this is TFC328 here. And I want to cover Burial at Sea at some point, but since I already got pissed off at a bunch of characters I hated in video games, figured I'd calm down a bit and return to a more familiar territory of mine. Action figures. Now, there are bad action figures, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot easier to find the good stuff, especially with the recent advents of the new Marvel Legends Infinites and Combiner Wars stuff. While we're on that subject, I really only collect figures from the Marvel Legends and Transformers stuff, as whenever I go off my beaten path, I usually get little novelty items or really expensive Japanese figures. So here are my 10 favorite figures other than the ones I already mentioned in my previous favorite figures video. I use this figure almost all the time in my videos, mostly considering I can actually do a pretty decent mimic of Hugo Weaving's Megatron voice.
Cookies need love, like everything does.
But I just love this figure's design, articulation, and even accessories. The only thing missing was his shotgun, but Hasbro actually addressed that issue by including in his Age of Extinction Evasion mode Optimus Prime's gun, down to molding some tabs for this figure to hold it properly. In fact, Evasion Prime gets on here too, for being a fantastic execution of an insane idea. Have the G1 truck mode transform into the movie design. This is even crazier and quite ironic when you remember that Optimus was given a long-nosed truck mode for the movies, so there would be more mass for Optimus to transform out of, trying to avoid the mass shifting issue that's been plaguing the series since the days of old, and really even now. I may not have watched every episode of Animated, but I did love Lugnut's undying loyalty to Megatron. Shame the animated figure was so short, but the Voyager from Reveal the Shield is so good! How did I forget this in my previous video? He's sufficiently bulky, articulated, and full of personality, especially with his articulated fingers and mouth. He even has a spring-loaded punch gimmick for the punch of Kill Everything, a name more misleading than Final Fantasy. It just sucks that his best bud Blitzwing always ends up taller than him. While I didn't get Masterpiece Optimus Prime, I did get the other Masterpiece offering that year, Masterpiece Thundercracker. This one is actually based on the NP11 Seeker mold, as opposed to the NP3 Seeker mold. NP11 is more of a tweak of the MP3 Seeker mold, but all these tweaks are for the better. And just look at this deco! Magnificent! Hey look! A G1 Seeker holding Soundwave! Sonic Boom, save the planet from disaster! And considering that MP3 was made to be as realistic a jet as possible, the gen mode for the MP11 mold doesn't suffer as much as one would think it would. In fact, I've had it displayed as jet mode for the longest time. And considering I'm a guy who usually prefers to display his stuff in robot mode, that's saying a lot. Okay, it's not the best figure, and compared to the new Combiner Wars stuff, it looks pretty crappy, let's be honest here. But I do still hold a fondness for this figure. For some reason, I always knew that I had to get the Generation 2 color scheme above all others. Also helped that it was the cheapest offering at the time. It's the purple camo that gets to me. I mean, really? What practical use does it serve? Other than a city full of purple buildings, I can't really imagine any real use for it. So it just comes off as ridiculous, but in a charming way. Onslaught kinda looks like a block of cheese. Swindle, I guess, assumes that red and purple sells better. Blastoff looks ready to endure Elsa's eternal winter. Brawl just decided to lazily splatter some purple paint across his chassis. And Vortex actually makes this color scheme look plausible. 1 out of 5, not bad. Together they make for a Bruticus that's almost as brightly lit as the retail version. This is also one of the few times where the packaging is worth mentioning, considering how much of a slavish homage it is to the G2 packaging. It wouldn't be that noteworthy if they didn't go so far as to make it retro artwork, clip and save, and even the old school Hasbro logo. That's dedication if I've ever seen it. I've made it no secret that I'm a Soundwave fanboy. So having a huge homage to his G1 counterpart at an affordable price is something I'm more than happy to take. Twice! The Fall of Cybertron Voyager gets on here over the Deluxe for one reason. The gimmick. A blatant homage to G1 Soundwave's ability to launch his minions out of his chest. It may not be the best gimmick in the world, but it's certainly something to sell your toy on, which they did to great effect, especially given they got a lot of mileage out of this mold. When redesigns happen, there's usually a huge outcry of fans saying that it looks dumb, or it misses the point of the original design. Even if there really wasn't much change to begin with. The movie designs are no exception to this rule, though Age of Extinction Grimlock shows that you can do your own thing, but still retain the original identity of the character. While he looks nothing like the standard Grimlock design, You look at that thing and think to yourself, that's Grimlock. And I don't want to mess with him! This design is actually brought to life wonderfully with a surprisingly excellent use of paintwork. Hasbro's sculpts are usually strong, but they often lose a lot of their identity in either being molded into plastics that don't let the design shine through, or they just straight up lack the paint to make them stand out more. But with the excellent use of shinier plastics and solid paintwork, he almost looks like a high-end Japanese figure, not a brick-and-mortar Hasbro release. That's not even getting into the excellent articulation, allowing for some cool dynamic poses, and even the surprisingly well-realized T-Rex mode, especially given how good the last Grimlock's T-Rex mode was. That's not to say the other Dinobots from Age of Extinction are bad. In fact, they're all great, but one in particular stands out amongst them. Snarl. He's mainly green, so that gets some points for me. His transformation is rather well done, even going so far as to mold a second head in the other leg for the sake of symmetry. And the robot mode homages G1's Snarl and, somehow, Beast Wars Dinobot and Waspinator in the same mold. He looks suitably burly, and I like what they did with the tail and back plate, making for a badass axe for some badass executioner poses. I'm annoyed I had to get Toxin for the Green Goblin head, but at least I got Carnage eventually. This figure almost looks like he jumped right out of the pages of Maximum Carnage. And since Carnage is supposed to look sloppy, a lot of paint and mold errors can actually be ignored, or at least considered to flow with the insanity the character radiates. This is on top of the excellent articulation the Buggy Cap mold provides him with. Easily the best of the Ultimate Green Goblin wave. Speaking of kick-ass action figures based on popular Spider-Man villains, I've had my eye on this one for almost as long as its existence has been public knowledge. The issue is that I never remembered that it existed when I got money that was until this past Christmas. He may not be as posable of the Legends guys, but Select was always more of a sculpt-heavy statue line, and it was only more recently that they started having more articulation in their figures, but they were still able to retain the sculpts that Diamond Select was known for. The accessories are what sells it, as this allows for the figure to be any sort of Venom you want, from an unmasked Eddie, to a first appearance McFarlane rendition, a more standard Venom figure, or even an update to Venom the Madness of all things. I've collected a fair few Venom figures in my day, but this one is undeniably the best. Many people were looking forward to Beastfire Predaking since, well, he was fucking huge in the show! So a scale like this would be a little more accurate. I do admit that I enjoy playing with this figure for a few reasons, even if he's not perfect. It's got some good articulation, and it's just fun to move those ratchets. The Dragon mode isn't half bad either, since the transformation is so simple a maggot could do it, even if the gimmick does kinda ruin any decent poses with the mode. I do like the missile launchers and the tail sword, labeled with the awesome name of That's not even mentioning his huge 21-inch wingspan. I also have a big sentiment towards this figure because I always have him protecting Liz. And I bought him along with Bioshock Infinite. Hang on a minute.
A few moments later.
You know, I thought talking about some kick-ass toys would actually make me feel better about myself, so I can rip into Burial at Sea with a clear, cynical mind. Maybe what I need is a video game. One that doesn't compromise its great gameplay for a solid story with some great characters. And can you shut off the sappy-ass music? I mean, it's not like I'm grieving over someone's death. Wait a minute! Perfect. Next time, I'm discussing my top 10 Fire Emblem Awakening characters.